Human Rights Education. CLJ2. Lecture 002B. Rights under the Anti-Torture Law. Welcome back. In this lecture, we are going to learn about Republic Act No. 9745, or the Anti-Torture Act of 2009. This lecture can get a little technical, so I need you to be extra attentive. Set your devices to silent, lean forwards, and read along. Do not fall asleep, and try your best to learn something from this lecture. Let us start. What is RA 9745? Republic Act 9745, according to its title, is an act penalizing torture and other cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment or punishment and prescribing penalties therefor. Its short title, according to Section 1 thereof, is the Anti-Torture Law of 2009. It was approved on November 10, 2009 by President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. Section 2 of RA 9745 provides for the law's purpose, which reads as follows: b. To ensure that the human rights of all persons, including suspects, detainees, and prisoners, are respected at all times, and that no person placed under investigation or held in custody of any person in authority or agent of a person in authority shall be subjected to physical, psychological, or mental harm, force, violence, threat, or intimidation, or any act that impairs his or her free will or in any manner demeans or degrades human dignity. C. To ensure that secret detention places, solitary, incommunicado, or other similar forms of detention, where torture may be carried out with impunity, are prohibited. What is the constitutional basis of RA 9745? Article 2, Declaration of Principles and State Policies, Section 11 of the 1987 Constitution reads, "The state values the dignity of every human person and guarantees full respect for human rights." This same statement is echoed or repeated in Section 2, Paragraph A of RA 9745. Article 3, Bill of Rights, Section 12 of the 1987 Constitution, however, provides a clearer basis regarding the prohibition against the practice of torture in our country. It reads Section 12. 1. Any person under investigation for the commission of an offense shall have the right to be informed of his right to remain silent and to have competent and independent counsel, preferably of his own choice. If the person cannot afford the services of counsel, he must be provided with one. These rights cannot be waived except in writing and in the presence of counsel. 2. No torture, force, violence, threat, intimidation, or any other means which vitiate the free will shall be used against him. Secret detention places, solitary, incommunicado, or other similar forms of detention are prohibited. 3. Any confession or admission obtained in violation of this or Section 17 hereof shall be inadmissible in evidence against him. 4. The law shall provide for penal and civil sanctions for violations of this section as well as compensation to and rehabilitation of victims of torture or similar practices, and their families. All these statements are found and expanded upon by RA 9745. Whose rights are protected by RA 9745? RA 9745 is primarily concerned about the protection of the rights of a person who is a suspect, detainee, or prisoner, under investigation or in custody against torture by a person in authority or his agents. For your information, suspects, detainees, and prisoners are not the same. A suspect is someone who has not yet been formally charged with a crime. They are held at the police station while being investigated. A detainee is someone who has been formally charged with a crime. They are held in city or municipal jails while they are on trial. Finally, a prisoner is someone who has already been convicted of a crime. They are held in penal farms, like Muntinlupa, while they serve the duration of their sentences. RA 9745, however, also extends its protection to the torture victim's lawyer, witness, and relatives should a complaint for the violation of this law is filed. What is torture? The legal definition of torture, according to Section 3, paragraph A of RA 9745, torture refers to an act by which severe pain or suffering, whether physical or mental, is intentionally inflicted on a person for such purposes as obtaining from him or her or a third person information or a confession, punishing him or her for an act he or she or a third person has committed or is suspected of having committed, or intimidating or coercing him or her or a third person, or for any reason based on discrimination of any kind, when such pain or suffering is inflicted by or at the instigation of or with the consent or acquiescence of a person in authority or agent of a person in authority. Who is a victim of torture? According to Section 3, paragraph C of RA 9745, the legal definition of a torture victim is: victim refers to the person subjected to torture or other cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment or punishment as defined above, and any individual who has suffered harm as a result of any act or acts of torture or other cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment or punishment. What forms of torture does RA 9745 protect against? Section 4 of RA 9745 defines and enumerates the acts of torture that may be committed against a person under investigation or custody. These acts are as follows. A. Physical torture is a form of treatment or punishment inflicted by a person in authority or agent of a person in authority upon another in his or her custody that causes severe pain, exhaustion, disability, or dysfunction of one or more parts of the body, such as 1. Systematic beating, head banging, punching, kicking, striking with truncheon or rifle butt or other similar objects, and jumping on the stomach. 2. Food deprivation or forcible feeding with spoiled food, animal or human excreta, and other stuff or substances not normally eaten. 3. Electric shock. 4. Cigarette burning, burning by electrically heated rods, hot oil, acid by the rubbing of pepper or other chemical substances on mucous membranes, or acids or spices directly on the wound or wounds. 5. The submersion of the head in water or water polluted with excrement, urine, vomit, and or blood until the brink of suffocation. 6. Being tied or forced to assume fixed and stressful bodily position. 7. Rape and sexual abuse, including the insertion of foreign objects into the sex organ or rectum, or electrical torture of the genitals. 8. Mutilation or amputation of the essential parts of the body such as the genitalia, ear, tongue, etc. 9. Dental torture or the forced extraction of the teeth. 10. Pulling out of fingernails. 11. Harmful exposure to the elements such as sunlight and extreme cold. 12. The use of plastic bag and other materials placed over the head to the point of asphyxiation. 13. The use of psychoactive drugs to change the perception, memory, alertness, or will of a person, such as I. The administration of drugs to induce confession and or reduce mental competency, or 2. The use of drugs to induce extreme pain or certain symptoms of a disease, and 14. Other analogous acts of physical torture, and b. Mental and or psychological torture refers to acts committed by a person in authority or agent of a person in authority which are calculated to affect or confuse the mind and or undermine a person's dignity and morale, such as 1. Blindfolding. 2. Threatening a person or persons or his or her relative or relatives with bodily harm, execution, or other wrongful acts. 3. Confinement in solitary cells or secret detention places. 4. Prolonged interrogation. 5. Preparing a prisoner for a show trial, public display, or public humiliation of a detainee or prisoner. 6. Causing unscheduled transfer of a person deprived of liberty from one place to another, creating the belief that he or she shall be summarily executed. 7. Maltreating a member or members of a person's family. 8. Causing the torture sessions to be witnessed by the person's family, relatives, or any third party. 9. Denial of sleep and or rest. 10. Shame infliction, such as stripping the person naked, parading him or her in public places, shaving the victim's head, or putting marks on his, her body against his or her will. 11. Deliberately prohibiting the victim to communicate with any member of his or her family. And 12. Other analogous acts of mental and or psychological torture. What is prohibited detention? According to Section 7 ODRA 9745 states that prohibited detention, secret detention places, solitary confinement, incommunicado or other similar forms of detention, where torture may be carried out with impunity are hereby prohibited. When and how does RA 9745 apply? According to Section 6 of RA 9745, the protection of the law shall apply to all circumstances. A state of war or a threat of war, internal political instability, or any other public emergency, or a document or any determination comprising an order of battle shall not and can never be invoked as a justification for torture and other cruel, inhuman and degrading treatment or punishment. What is an order of battle? An order of battle, according to Section 3, paragraph D of RA 9745, refers to any document or determination made by the military, police or any law enforcement agency of the government, listing the names of persons and organizations that it perceives to be enemies of the state and that it considers as legitimate targets as combatants that it could deal with, through the use of means allowed by domestic and international law. And that concludes our lecture. If you want to rewatch this video, it will be made available on YouTube. As always, please share to those who do not have access to the internet. Be sure to thank your proctor on your way out. Thank you for listening. I am Mr. Moslina. See you on the next lecture. Good day to you all.